I always thought silence was a luxury item, the kind you only appreciate when the world finally stops yelling at you. I used to enjoy it while polishing diamond rings under the studio lamp, the steady tick of the clock keeping time with my own breathing. But silence has a different tone when it sits in the middle of a house that no longer feels like yours. It sounds heavier, like it knows something you don't. That was the kind of silence I heard the morning I found the receipt. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. It wasn't even hidden well, just tucked between two invoices on my workbench, sitting there like a reminder I didn't ask for. The receipt was for a custom engagement ring, platinum band, cushion-cut stone, hand engraving, to Tara, love Alden. And the price tag, far higher than the ring he gave me when we were young, broke, and still pretending life made sense. I stared at the paper for a full minute, waiting for my brain to glitch, to insist it was a client order I had forgotten. But I don't forget my clients, and I certainly don't miss the engraving of another woman's name. It took exactly 3 breaths for the anger to settle into something much colder, smarter, quieter. He thought I'd cry. That part amused me. I didn't throw things, I didn't scream, or call him, or rush into the bathroom mirror to examine the face of a woman betrayed. I simply placed the receipt down, wiped my hands, and made a list. Not a dramatic list, not the pros and cons of marriage kind, just a checklist of actions. Locks, bank, storage, access. Step 1, call locksmith. Step 2, freeze joint accounts. Step 3, move his suits into storage. Step 4, breathe. I wasn't even shaking. I was annoyed. Annoyed that he thought he could hide something this lazy. Annoyed that after years of paying attention to the smallest details for clients, the man I married didn't think I could spot a lie printed in 12-point serif font. By the time the locksmith arrived, I had already packed half of Alden's closet into labeled garment bags. The locksmith didn't ask questions, but he looked at the wedding photo on the wall, then at the bags by the door, and gave me that familiar expression. Ah, I see. He finished the job in 10 minutes. I tipped him 50%. The man earned it. He closed a chapter in record time. Alden texted me that afternoon. Hey, car dealership meeting ran long. Want me to pick up sushi for dinner? I replied, sure. Pick up a life that isn't mine while you're at it. I could practically feel him frowning at the screen. He sent a follow-up. Everything okay? I didn't answer. I wanted him confused. Confusion makes people sloppy. Sloppy people confess without realizing they're confessing. While he was out buying raw fish like nothing was off, I was on the bank app, clicking freeze access with the same satisfaction one gets from pulling weeds out of a perfect lawn. It felt efficient, clean, fair. If he wanted luxury for his new sweetheart, he could start with his own money. When he finally came home, the front door rejected his key. I watched him through the peephole, suit jacket slung over his shoulder, phone in hand, expression stuck between, did I forget something? And, maybe the world just glitched. He tried the key again. And again. And then, there it was, the moment his face fell slightly. Realization had entered the chat. He knocked, calmly at first. Mira, hey, did the lock jam? I didn't respond. I wanted him to feel the weight of being outside the house he assumed would always open for him. That, I've learned, is the true start of payback. Not the grand reveal, not the shouted confrontation, but the moment someone realizes they aren't in control anymore. He called my phone. I let it ring. He rang the doorbell. I let it echo. Finally, he called through the door, voice lifting. Mira, can we talk? No. We couldn't. Talking was for equal parties, not for a man who thought engraved jewelry was a harmless hobby like golf. When he finally left, no doubt to book a hotel, I sat on the couch and stared at the receipt again. To Tara, love Alden, My name used to be engraved in things too. Now it was just engraved in mortgage papers and shared utility bills. He thought I'd cry. Instead, I made tea. The next morning, I did what any self-respecting woman with a receipt-shaped clue would do. I tracked down the jewelry store. I wasn't dramatic about it. I didn't storm in with sunglasses and attitude. I simply strolled in like I owned the place, because intellectual superiority feels a lot like ownership. "Hi there," I said to the girl behind the counter. "I'm looking for details on a custom order. I'm restoring a related piece and need the specs." She checked the receipt, nodded, and without hesitation pulled up the order file on her screen. People trust confidence. They also trust a woman who uses words like restoring and related piece. "Beautiful ring," she said, turning the monitor slightly. The buyer wanted a vintage-inspired split band. Took weeks to perfect. "Must have been for someone special," I said, voice neutral. "Oh, yes. He was very particular. Wanted it ready before the weekend. Said he was planning something big. Of course he was." "And the engraving?" I asked. She smiled. "To Tara, love Alden. Romantic, right?" I gave her the kind of polite grin you save for a child bragging about drawing on the wall. Beyond romantic, I walked out with every detail I needed. I also left with something far better than anger: clarity. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a life on the side. And worst of all, he thought I wouldn't notice. I didn't drive home. I drove to a quiet cafe and searched the name Tara. Yoga instructor, health influencer, 3,000 followers. Exactly the kind of woman who posts sunrise photos with captions like, "Protect your peace." I bookmarked her profile. I planned my next move. By the time Alden called again, the surprise in his voice had melted into suspicion. "Mira, I don't know what's going on, but freezing our accounts? Really?" "You mean my account," I corrected, stirring honey into my tea. "Yours still exists, somewhere, wherever you keep your ring receipts." Silence. Not the confused kind this time, the terrified kind. "Can we just talk in person?" "Sure," I said. "Bring the ring. We'll make it a party." He exhaled hard. "Mira, it's not what you think." I laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly. Just enough to let him know the game was over. "Oh, Alden, it's exactly what I think." That night, I cleared the hallway wall of wedding photos. Not because I was sentimental, but because I needed visual space for new information. Names, dates, connections. Restoration is my work. Restoration of old stones. Restoration of old truths. Same skill set, different medium. By midnight, I had a working plan. Step 1 had been locking him out. Step 2 would be cutting him off socially. Step 3, well, that one would involve Tara. I checked her profile again. Pilates retreat on Thursday, organic juice event Saturday, and on Friday, reservation tagged at Magnolia Room, the very restaurant where Alden once took me for our anniversary. That was the proposal venue. Of course it was. The man had no imagination. Even his betrayal came pre-packaged and recyclable. Perfect. If he wanted an audience for his grand romantic gesture, I would give him one. Just not the one he expected. The next morning, while I added antique settings to a client's necklace, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Hi, is this Mira? I was told you wanted to talk about Alden." Tara, I smiled. So she wasn't clueless. Good. That meant she'd be useful. "Yes," I typed. "We should meet. I have something you need to see." She agreed in under a minute. Women always think they're alone in these stories. Then they learn there's always another woman standing just behind the curtain, holding the receipt. I met Tara at a small cafe on Birch Street, the kind with leafy plants and overpriced oat milk. She walked in wearing yoga pants and confidence. She was pretty, in the kind of way that still believed in morning routines and adult friendships. I almost liked her. Almost. "You must be Mira," she said, "and you must be Tara, the future Mrs. Receipt." She blinked. "The what?" I slid the paper across the table. She read it. Twice. Her face shifted, shock, anger, embarrassment, all in one tight breath. "He told me he was unmarried," she whispered. "Said the divorce was finalized months ago." "Interesting," I said, "because I'm still very much not divorced, though I think I'll start that process tomorrow." She looked up at me, eyes wide. "So he's been living two lives?" "Absolutely. Congratulations. You're in the upgraded version." She didn't laugh. "Fair." "I didn't know," she said. "I would never." "I believe you," I said. "That's why I'm giving you a choice." She leaned in. "What choice?" "You can pretend you didn't know," I said. "Marry him. Enjoy the ring and the nightmare that comes with it. Or, we ruin him together." She stared at me, not sure if I was joking. I wasn't. The waiter arrived. We ordered tea. By the time the cups were placed between us, Tara nodded. "I want in." I walked back to my car feeling lighter. Not healed, not even close, but focused. There's something oddly comforting about a plan forming, solid and sharp. That evening, Alden sent another message. "We need to fix this. Don't make a scene." "Oh, Alden, the scene is already booked. The audience is seated, the ring is polished, and I am no longer the woman you thought would cry into a pillow." I set my phone down, locked the door behind me, and turned off the lights. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet, curtains drawn, sprinklers on timers, perfect lawns hiding imperfect lives. He thought I'd cry. I was just getting started. If revenge were a meal, I'd say mine was just starting to simmer. Not quite boiling, just a low, controlled heat, like the kind you use to melt gold without ruining its shine. The day after meeting Tara, I woke up earlier than usual, opened my curtains, and watched the neat little street outside come alive with its usual perfection. Mrs. Harlow was already watering her hydrangeas in matching gloves and shoes. The world looked annoyingly normal, which was ironic, considering I was about to turn it upside down. Tara and I had planned everything over a late-night call. She was nervous at first, her voice trembling through the line like a tightrope. But underneath it, I heard something stronger, anger trying to behave itself. She'd been told a lie and wanted to watch it burn politely. I respected that. Friday was the big day. Alden had reserved a table at the Magnolia Room, a restaurant that thought it was more important than it actually was. Dim lighting, marble everything, and waiters who acted like their bow ties were made of silk spun by angels. It was the same place where he once told me, "You're the best decision I ever made." I remember laughing at that, not because it was funny, but because it was clearly rehearsed. I spent Friday morning as if preparing for an exhibit. My outfit was deliberate, elegant but sharp, like a blade hidden under velvet. My hair was up, my makeup calm. No tears, no mess, no signs of heartbreak. I wasn't going for abandoned wife. I was going for you underestimated the wrong woman. Before heading out, I stopped by the jewelry studio to pick up a small velvet box. Inside was a ring. His ring. The one I'd restored for him years ago when he chipped it on a showroom car door. He'd said it symbolized endurance. I was about to redefine that word for him. Tara texted, "I'm in position. Table 9. He's late." Of course he was late. Alden treated time like an accessory, useful only when it made him look good. When I arrived, the hostess smiled automatically, probably assuming I was there for some romantic evening. I smiled back, because irony is delicious when served cold. "Reservation for Carter," I said. "He should be arriving soon." She led me toward the back. The restaurant smelled like butter and secrets. At table 9, Tara sat looking perfectly composed in her light dress, holding a wine glass she hadn't touched. Her expression was calm, but her fingers drummed against the stem. "Ready?" I whispered as I passed. Her jaw tightened. Ready. I positioned myself near the corner, half hidden behind a column. It wasn't exactly subtle, but Alden never noticed details unless they benefited him. He walked in 10 minutes later, wearing the same smug confidence he wore to every negotiation. The hostess greeted him with the kind of warmth reserved for regulars who tip too much. He followed her through the dining area, glancing around to make sure the room noticed him. Of course, the room did. Then he saw Tara. He smiled. That exact smile I'd seen when he convinced me to sign our first mortgage. Practiced, strategic, empty. He walked up to her, leaned down and kissed her cheek. You look incredible, he said, voice soft and trained. Tara smiled, though I could see the tension behind it. She played her role perfectly. He didn't notice me yet. That was fine. Timing mattered. He ordered champagne before even sitting down. For new beginnings, he said. Oh, the man loved his lines. Tara tilted her head. New beginnings? You sound like someone trying to erase the past. Alden chuckled. The past is just a story, sweetheart. I couldn't help it. I rolled my eyes. He said that exact sentence to me after forgetting our anniversary 2 years ago. I remember because it was the first time I realized our marriage had become a script he edited at will. The waiter arrived with the champagne. Alden made a little toast speech, something about love being rare, fate being generous, and timing being everything. Tara smiled sweetly, nodded at the right moments, and let him dig his own grave with words. Then came the box, the infamous ring box. He opened it with theatrical precision, holding it up just enough for nearby diners to notice. He loved an audience. Tara Evans, he began, voice rich with confidence. Will you... She stood up. He froze mid-sentence. Tara looked at him like someone seeing a painting up close and realizing it was cheaper than it looked. Alden, she said softly, you might want to stop there. He frowned. What? She stepped aside. Someone else wants a word. That was my cue. I walked forward, heels clicking against the marble floor, calm as a sermon. His head snapped up. The color drained from his face, though I prefer to think of it as the shade of realization. Mira, he said, voice breaking into disbelief. Hello, Alden. I smiled. Lovely night for an engagement. The restaurant went silent in that way public places do when they sense gossip forming. Even the background music seemed to lower itself out of respect for the coming drama. What are you doing here? He whispered. Interrupting, I said. You almost got the name right on that ring. Such progress. Tara crossed her arms, her expression flat. You lied to me, she said. He turned to her. Tara, please, Oh, don't start, I cut in. We both know how this scene goes. You'll say it was complicated. You'll say you were unhappy. You'll promise you were going to tell me. You'll sprinkle in a few words like soulmate or fate, and she might even believe you for a minute. But here's the truth, Alden. You're just not that original. Someone gasped from a nearby table. A waiter pretended to refill water glasses just to get closer. I didn't mind. Let them all watch. This was better than primetime television. Alden opened his mouth, then closed it again. For a man who sold luxury cars for a living, he had surprisingly poor control over his face. Tara took the box from his hand and set it on the table like it was contaminated. You said you were divorced, she said. He stammered. We're separated. Correction, I said. We're locked out. Subtle difference. Alden looked at me, desperation creeping in around the edges. Mira, we can talk about this privately. Private conversations are for people with honesty, I said. You forfeited that. He looked around the restaurant, realizing the audience wasn't leaving. His charm, the thing he wore like a shield, was starting to crumble. I can explain, he said again, weaker this time. Of course you can, I said. You've always been good with words, just terrible with facts. Tara stood, slid her purse over her shoulder, and said quietly, You proposed to me with your wife watching. You really are the kind of man who deserves his own caution label." Then she walked out. The entire restaurant's attention followed her until the door shut. I remained, staring at him. "You've embarrassed yourself enough," I said, picking up the ring box. "You can keep this, though. Might fetch a good resale value, if you can find a buyer who doesn't Google names engraved inside." He reached out. "Mira, don't." I handed it to the waiter instead. "For cleaning," I said. "Seems to have gathered fingerprints of poor judgment." Then I left too, leaving Alden standing under the spotlight of his own collapse. Outside, the air felt cleaner, not freer, just sharper. Tara waited near the parking lot, arms folded, still processing everything. When she saw me, she let out a long breath. "Was that too much?" she asked. "Not enough," I said, "but it'll do for now." We both stood there in silence for a while. Inside, through the glass wall, I could see him still at the table, hands on his forehead. People pretended not to stare, but of course they did. The story was already writing itself across the neighborhood text chains. "I can't believe I fell for him," Tara said quietly. "You and me both," I replied, "but consider this your clean exit." She nodded. "What are you going to do next?" "Finish what he started," I said. "He thought this was an ending. It's really just an opening act." The next day, Willowbend Estates buzzed like a hive kicked open. The story had traveled faster than a yard sale rumor. By breakfast, I'd already received 3 just-checking-in messages and 1 oddly cheerful email from a neighbor who claimed she always suspected something. Gossip in this town moved at the speed of caffeine. I kept my phone on silent and focused on cleaning my studio. It helped me think. There's something therapeutic about polishing gemstones, scrubbing away layers of grime until clarity returns. People aren't so different. You just need the right tools. Around noon, I heard footsteps outside. I looked through the blinds and saw Jenna Harlow, my ex-friend, approaching with a casserole dish. She was the type who thought empathy should come baked and sprinkled with breadcrumbs. I considered pretending not to be home, but decided confrontation was part of my new daily routine. "Mira," she said brightly when I opened the door. "I just heard. I'm so sorry." I gave her a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Sorry for what exactly, Jenna? The infidelity or the performance art?" Her cheeks flushed. "Well, both, I suppose. It's just such a shock." "Not really," I said. "Alden's always been a collector. Cars, compliments, poor decisions." She blinked. "People are saying—" "I'm sure they are," I said. "Give them something accurate to repeat. I caught him trying to propose to another woman. She turned him down. I walked away. The end." Jenna's mouth hung open for a second before she composed herself. "Well, if you ever need to talk—" "I'm good," I said. "But thanks for the casserole. I'll add it to my growing collection of pity dishes." She smiled awkwardly and retreated down the walkway. As soon as she left, I heard the faint hum of another door opening, followed by whispered voices. The neighborhood was alive with whispers. I could almost hear the phrases assembling themselves. Mira Carter locked him out. "Did you see the video? Someone filmed it. Of course someone filmed it." By evening, I found the proof. A link appeared in my text messages from an unknown number. No words, just the link. I clicked. There it was. Grainy phone footage from the restaurant. The camera focused perfectly on Alden's shocked face when I appeared. Tara's calm exit. My final words. The internet never sleeps, especially in a suburb with too much free time. Within hours, the video had spread. Even the community Facebook group had a post titled "Dinner Disaster" at Magnolia Room, local couples seen, caught on camera. I didn't comment, but I read every word. The comment section was better than television. Part of me should have felt embarrassed. But instead, I laughed. The man who lived off reputation now had his downfall trending in his own zip code. At 9, Alden finally called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Mira," he said, voice strained. We need to fix this. Oh, now it's we, I said. Did your publicist quit already? Everyone's talking about it, he said. It's hurting my job, my image. I know, I said. Isn't it wonderful when actions have visible consequences? You're enjoying this, he said, immensely. Mira, please, I cut him off. You humiliated yourself, Alden. I just gave you a stage. He was silent for a few seconds. I could almost hear his brain scrambling for the right sales pitch. I made a mistake, he finally said. Multiple, I corrected. Sequentially arranged. Almost impressive in their consistency. He sighed. Can we just meet? Talk privately? Not this time, I said. Talking privately is how you convinced women to believe your half-truths. I prefer public accountability. He started to argue, but I hung up. I'd said my piece. Later that night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the porch. The neighborhood was quiet again, though I could feel eyes behind curtains. My phone buzzed. Tara again. Saw the video. He called me too. Said you tricked him. Classic projection, I typed back. Welcome to the alumni club. She sent a laughing emoji, then wrote, He's finished, isn't he? Not yet, I replied. We're just getting to the interesting part. I set the phone down, leaned back, and watched the sprinklers arch across the lawns, perfectly timed, perfectly ordinary. Somewhere, a dog barked. Somewhere else, a window closed. The whole neighborhood pretending to sleep while feeding on drama. He thought he'd get away with it. He thought I'd fade quietly into the background, just another ex-wife holding a grudge. He forgot who I am. I restore what's broken, polish what's tarnished, and make old things valuable again. Tomorrow, I'd start restoring my life. But tonight, I was content to let him squirm. By Monday morning, the video had made its full suburban migration. It started in the hands of bored brunch-goers, then traveled to group chats, then to the neighborhood Facebook page where someone typed, I'm not trying to judge but, which always means they absolutely are. By the time the HOA president sent out a reminder about respectful behavior in public venues, everyone knew exactly who it was about. Alden was suddenly the most discussed man in Willow Bend Estates, and I, the woman who handled it with such grace. I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning, but I accepted both. I spent the early hours in my studio, polishing a Victorian brooch while listening to a podcast about art restoration. The process always calmed me, removing grime, repairing cracks, bringing truth back to the surface. People always think jewelry lasts forever. It doesn't. It survives because someone keeps restoring it. Marriage works the same way, except sometimes the best restoration is removal. At exactly 9:14 a.m., the doorbell rang. I didn't need to look to know who it was. The doorbell rhythm was familiar. 2 short presses, then 1 long. Like someone convinced persistence could replace permission. I opened the door anyway. Caroline stood there. Alden's aunt. Power hair, pearl earrings, blazer so sharp it probably came with instructions. The kind of woman who cared more about family appearances than actual morals. She didn't smile. Mira, she said, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe. Do we? Because the last time someone in your family wanted to talk, I ended up with a new lock and a viral video. Her jaw tightened. Let me in. Why would I do that? Because this affects all of us. There it was. Not his mistake, our problem. The family motto written in invisible ink. I stepped aside anyway, not because she deserved entry, but because confrontation is best done with tea and a comfortable chair. She sat stiffly, like the cushion might stain her reputation. This situation has gone too far. By situation, do you mean your nephew proposing to another woman while married? She ignored that. Alden is under a great deal of stress. The dealership is already asking questions. His colleagues are uncomfortable. Clients have concerns. I'm sure they do, I said. Turns out people don't like being sold cars by someone who can't manage his own life. She exhaled slowly. You could have handled this privately. You're right, I said. I could have cried quietly in a therapist's office and let him keep playing house with whoever came next. But I chose honesty instead of performance. Shocking, I know. She narrowed her eyes. You forget who helped Alden get where he is. Ah, yes, I said. Your money, your connections, your pressure. The 3 pillars of Carter family tradition. Her silence confirmed I had struck the right nerve. I continued calmly. Let me guess, you knew about Tara. Caroline didn't move, didn't blink. The absence of denial was an answer. I leaned forward. Did you encourage it? She didn't speak, but her gaze shifted, just a fraction. That was enough. So this wasn't just adultery, I said. It was strategy. She finally responded, voice low. You were never compatible with the long-term plan. I smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. And what plan was that? Build Alden into a dealership king and handpick him a new wife who fits the brochure? That girl, Tara, comes from a connected family, she snapped. Her father could have financed. Ah, there it is. Love by sponsorship. The mask slipped for a moment, and underneath it I saw pure entitlement. A woman who treated lives like stocks, trading people for profit. You can still fix this, she said. Announce a quiet separation. Release a statement. Say the marriage simply no longer worked. Alden can recover his standing. I didn't answer right away. I let the idea float in the air, long enough for her to think I might be considering it. Then I laughed, soft, controlled, lethal. You honestly think I'd help you clean up his mess? He's family, she said sharply. So was I replied, until he went ring shopping with someone else. Her eyes hardened. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but not as much as he already does. She stood, gathered her handbag, and headed for the door. Before leaving, she turned once more. You don't understand what you've started. Oh, I do, I said. You just don't understand that it's already past the point of negotiation. She left without another word. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, not from emotion, but from adrenaline. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating husband anymore. I was dealing with a family-run PR machine. Fine. Machines break too. That afternoon, I went digging, not into gossip, but into paperwork. Marriage documents, insurance forms, joint accounts. I'd already frozen most of them, but now I wanted to know what he had hidden. You learn a lot when you stop trusting someone and start treating them like a case file. By 3 p.m., I found something useful, a storage unit rental. Not in our neighborhood, not under his name, under his aunt's, subtle, almost clever. I texted Tara, found something. Can you meet tonight? She replied instantly. Yes, just say when. 6 hours later, we were standing outside a row of metal storage units on the south side of town. The kind of place where forgotten dreams and old furniture go to fade. The air smelled like dust and neglect. Tara looked nervous. Are you sure this is okay? Legal? No, I said. Ethical? Absolutely. She smirked. I like you more every day. I had already picked the lock earlier. Turns out jewelry tools have more than one use, and now we pulled the door up together. Inside, a collection of things Alden didn't want anyone to know existed. Designer suitcases, boxes labeled personal, and hanging on a rack, expensive suits, pressed and ready for a man with a future that didn't include me. I knew he was arrogant, Tara said, but this is a whole storage room of ego. I moved to the desk against the wall, a sleek setup with files, receipts, even a second phone. Not burner-level shady, but definitely double-life material. That's his handwriting, Tara said, pointing at a label. Good, I said. Means we're in the right place. We opened the boxes. Inside, high-end watches, cufflinks, promotional materials for a business expansion he apparently planned without telling me. Apparently, The grand fiancé reveal was supposed to pair nicely with a new dealership launch. He wasn't building a life with her romantically. He was building a brand. Tara sat on a crate. Did he ever love either of us? I don't know, I said. But I know what he loved. Status. And we were props. She was quiet for a moment. So what now? Now, I said, pulling out my phone. We let the world see the kind of man who keeps 2 lives in storage. I photographed everything. Not for blackmail, just insurance. Truth is a beautiful weapon when handled right. Before leaving, I took one more thing. A watch. The one I had bought him years ago. My engraving was still on the back. Love always finds its way home. I put it in my pocket. The next morning, I sent a single email to Alden's dealership partners, polite, simple, factual. Before you finalize any expansion deals, you may want to review the assets and identities tied to your primary representative. Attached are documents for your consideration. No threats, no dramatic letter. Just truth, curated and well lit. I pressed send, then turned off my laptop. There was no satisfaction in pressing the button. The satisfaction was knowing what came next. At noon, Alden called. I ignored it. At 12:03, he called again. At 12:07, a text. What did you do? At 12:10, Mira, answer me. At 12:13, they pulled the contract. Did you send something? I finally responded, consider it a preview. The full show airs soon. No reply. But 3 minutes later, I heard a car screech outside. He didn't knock this time. He pounded. Mira, open the door. I didn't. I watched him through the security camera feed. Hair uncombed, shirt rumpled, eyes wild. The image of a man realizing his life wasn't a stage play anymore. You can't do this, he shouted. I pressed the speaker button. Oh, but I can, I said. Actions create reactions, Alden. You started this story. I'm just writing the middle. He stared into the camera, breathing hard. You're ruining everything. No, I'm exposing everything, I said. Difference matters. Then I turned off the feed. That evening, I met Tara at a quiet cafe again. She looked more relaxed now, anger reorganized into focus. So what's next? She asked. Next, I said, we hit where it hurts most. Not his money, his pride. She smirked. I assume you have a plan? Several, I said. But first, tell me something. Do you want to watch him fall, or do you want to help push? She considered it, then smiled, slow, sharp, certain. Push. We clinked glasses. In the window reflection, I saw myself. Not the abandoned wife, not the crying victim people expected. Just a woman restoring balance, one precise strike at a time. He thought I was done. He hadn't even seen the crescendo yet. Revenge isn't a straight line. It's a staircase, one careful step at a time, no rushing, no skipping, because you don't want to slip and land at the bottom looking foolish. By the time the 4th step arrived, I wasn't just reacting to what Alden had done. I was shaping the narrative, and nothing unsettles a man built on image more than losing control of the story he thought he was starring in. The dealership fallout hit him fast and loud. By Tuesday, every local business contact had either needed to reschedule or decided to explore other partners. That's corporate language for we don't want your scandal anywhere near our brand. He went from the man who shook hands with polished confidence to the man whose calls went unanswered. You'd think he would have stayed home to reflect or maybe rethink his entire personality, but Alden's instinct was always the same: perform harder. So he started showing up everywhere: grocery store, gym, even the neighborhood cafe, as if forcing the world to witness his charm would reset his reputation. It didn't. The more he smiled, the more people avoided eye contact. I watched all of this from a safe, quiet distance, the way a jeweler watches metal soften over flame. You don't touch it while it's changing. You just wait. Meanwhile, Caroline was busy trying to fix everything in the way wealthy, entitled people fix things, by pretending they aren't broken. She released a statement to the dealership staff, claiming Alden was taking time to focus on personal matters. That was code for, "We're hoping the scandal dies down so we can pretend he's still valuable." But it wasn't dying down, because I wasn't done. The next logical step was the second apartment, the secret one, the place he used when he wanted to look like an available bachelor instead of a married man with responsibilities. I hadn't shown Tara everything inside when we first went, because not every truth deserves to arrive all at once. Some of them need dramatic lighting and timing. I drove there alone this time, just before sunset, when the sky turned the color of rusted gold. The building itself was modern. White walls, glass balconies, clean lines, exactly the type of place where someone pretends to start fresh. I still had the access code from the rental paperwork. He thought signing the lease under Caroline's name would hide it. He should have remembered I used to organize his files. The apartment was spotless, not in a hygienic way, but in a curated way, like he rehearsed being single. A few pieces of designer furniture, sleek lamp, no personal items except the ones he planned to show. The kind of place that took effort to look effortless. No framed photos, except the staged ones he must have swapped depending on the audience. One of him on a boat, another of him at a wine event, shirt unbuttoned just enough to look relaxed. I didn't vandalize anything. I wasn't interested in breaking objects. I was interested in breaking certainty, so instead of destroying the apartment, I edited it. I replaced the picture frames with new ones, same frames, different photos, all of them of me and Alden. Wedding pictures, anniversary photos, even one from our first vacation together, printed and enlarged, the one where he had sunburn and claimed he didn't burn, he bronzed. Now it sat on the main shelf like a ghost returning to claim the room. Next, I opened his closet and removed every neatly pressed shirt. I didn't steal them. I steamed them, folded them, and placed them in boxes marked donation with bright red marker. The hangers remained empty. Emptiness is louder than vandalism. On the dresser, I left a velvet jewelry box, the one containing the restored watch with my engraving still inside. Under it, I taped a printed copy of a quote he once said to me during an argument. "Everything can be replaced." Poetic justice, gift-wrapped. Finally, I opened the fridge. Just water bottles and overpriced organic meals labeled with dates. The man even scheduled his nutrients. I added one thing, a bottle of champagne and a card taped to it. "Congratulations on your future. Too bad it's cancelled. M." I locked the door behind me and walked away without touching anything else. Silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the most merciless answer. That night, Alden called 8 times. I didn't answer. On the 9th attempt, I picked up. "What did you do to my place?" he demanded. No greeting, just accusation. "You'll have to be more specific," I said. "You've collected so many places lately." "You had no right." "Oh, Alden," I said, sighing dramatically. "I had every right. I paid the wedding vows, the rent, and the loyalty tax. You paid in lies. We're just balancing ledgers. You're ruining everything I built." "Incorrect," I said. "I'm simply revealing what you built the wrong way." He went quiet. For a moment I could hear his breathing, the sound of a man running out of scripts. "You want revenge? Fine. You win," he said. "Just stop. I can't take much more of this." That might have worked on the old version of me, the one who believed exhaustion should equal forgiveness. But I'd evolved. The truth was, I didn't want him destroyed. I wanted him exposed. "There's more coming," I told him. "You haven't even met the finale." He tried again, voice softer now, manipulative soft, like the way he spoke when he wanted me to believe something irrational. "Why are you doing this, Mira?" I smiled even though he couldn't see it. "Because you finally taught me something," I said. "If someone is going to rewrite my life, it's going to be me." I hung up. The next day, the dealership officially removed him from managerial duties. Not fired, just reassigned under internal review. A polite firing with extra syllables. He showed up anyway, tried to play the misunderstood genius role, only to discover no one was impressed. Word travels fast when people are secretly glad you fell. Meanwhile, the neighbors in Willow Bend had shifted from whispering to performing concern, the kind that begins with, "If you ever want to talk," and ends with, "But I'm absolutely telling everyone what you say." I wasn't offended. Suburbia runs on recycled stories and professionally landscaped resentment. The only person I still chose to speak to was Tara. We met again at the cafe, where she arrived wearing a new kind of confidence, the kind fueled by clarity instead of spirulina and yoga breathing. "He's calling me too," she said, stirring her coffee. "Not apologizing, though. He says you poisoned me against him." "Standard tactic," I said. "When a lie collapses, blame the witnesses." She laughed, her real laugh this time, not the strained one from before. "He actually asked if I'd still consider staying friends." I made a face. Only Alden would think a proposal cancellation comes with a friendship coupon. "We're still doing the next step, right?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said. His aunt thinks she controls the narrative. It's time she learned she doesn't. The gala wasn't my idea. The universe handed it to me on a gold platter. A charity fundraiser hosted by Caroline. Black tie, silent auction, local press. The exact kind of event where reputations are polished until they shine. Or crack. Alden was on the guest list, naturally. So was nearly everyone who ever thought being seen in a room was the same thing as being respected. I wasn't invited. I planned to attend anyway. It wasn't illegal. It was symbolic. And symbolism is a weapon that leaves no fingerprints. The night of the gala, I wore a gown I hadn't touched in years. Deep emerald, fitted, elegant enough to make an entrance without speaking. I arrived with Tara as my +1. She was in clean, simple black, hair pinned up, expression ready for poetic justice. If Caroline had been drinking, she would have spit the champagne out the moment she saw us. Her face froze instead, eyes tight, smile stretched like a too small ribbon. "What are you doing here?" she whispered, teeth barely moving. "Supporting charity," I said. "You should be grateful. I'm helping your event trend." She stepped closer. "Leave, now." "Sure," I said, right after the announcement. "What announcement?" And then it happened. Faster than she could stop. The projector screens lit up. A slideshow began. Not the planned one. A new one. Photos from the storage unit. Documents showing alternate lease names. Screenshots of social media comments reacting to the restaurant proposal scandal. A video clip of Alden saying, "Everything can be replaced." No narration. Just reality. The guests stared. Whispers grew into a storm. Alden, who had arrived late, walked in just in time to see himself crumble in real time. For the second time that month, his face went from confidence to panic. He looked right at me. "Mira, stop this." I shook my head slowly. "You started this." Caroline rushed to shut down the projector, but the damage was done. People were already filming, posting, messaging. Truth moves faster than damage control. Alden tried to storm toward me. I didn't move. "You think this makes you strong?" he demanded. "You're just bitter." "No," I said calmly. "I'm balanced." Then I stepped past him and walked out, Tara beside me, flashes going off behind us like a finale. Outside, cool air hit my face. The world was quiet in the way a stage feels after the curtain falls. I didn't need to turn around to know Alden was finally watching his kingdom collapse. Not because I took anything from him, but because I showed everyone what was already missing. Revenge wasn't the point. Clarity was. And clarity, in the right hands, is devastating. He thought this was the end. He still hadn't realized. The ending was mine to write. There's a point in every plan where the shift becomes visible, where quiet strategy turns into motion and motion turns into impact. After the gala, the shift wasn't just visible. It was loud, public, and impossible for Alden or Caroline to bury under charm or connections. Their world had cracks now, deep, visible cracks, and I wasn't anywhere near done widening them. The morning after the gala, I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing like it had caught fire. Messages, mentions, screenshots, even a voicemail from someone I barely remembered from a block party 3 summers ago. Everyone suddenly wanted to check in, confirm the story, offer either condolences or congratulations depending on how much they enjoyed seeing a polished man fall off his own pedestal. I let the phone buzz until it stopped, not because I didn't care, but because quiet felt more satisfying than validation. By noon, the internet had already created the narrative for me. Someone had clipped the projector footage from the gala and set it to dramatic music. The caption, "When the real wife shows up." The comments were a buffet of opinions, theories, and pure suburban popcorn. That's when Alden showed up. Not at the door, not with flowers, not with an apology. He showed up honking from the driveway like a teenager demanding attention. I watched through the upstairs window. He looked disheveled in a way that wasn't stylish. Tie crooked, hair a mess, shirt creased like he'd slept in it or fought it. He got out of the car and started pacing, then yelling, then ringing the doorbell like pressing it harder would change the outcome. I didn't move. He finally shouted, "You want to talk? Let's talk like adults," which was hilarious coming from someone having a driveway tantrum. I ignored him. I wasn't going to reward theatrics. He kept pacing, muttering to himself, checking his phone, probably watching his career dissolve in real time. I could have filmed him and added a soundtrack, but I wasn't looking to humiliate him further. Not today. Today had a different purpose. Eventually, he left, spinning out of the driveway like he wanted the street to fear him. I waited until I could no longer hear the tires before opening the curtains fully. One neighbor across the street waved a small, silent salute. I waved back. Revenge teaches you a lot about who your quiet supporters are. Fine. By late afternoon, the phone buzz storm had slowed into something calmer. Still ongoing, but less explosive. That gave me time to prepare the second half of what I had planned. Truth had already exposed him. Now I needed to make sure consequence finished the job. I started with emails, not dramatic ones, polite, informative, well-documented ones, sent to the dealership board members, investors, and sponsors. Nothing emotional, just organized evidence with thoughtful subject lines like, "Items requiring legal clarification, Alden Carter." I didn't accuse him of a crime. I simply highlighted patterns of misrepresentation, inconsistencies in financial statements, and contracts signed under shell arrangements tied to the hidden apartment. People always overlook the simplest truth. You don't need to scream when paperwork can do the talking. Within hours, 3 board members replied, 2 cautiously, 1 aggressively, all clearly aware that Alden was no longer an asset, but a liability standing on 2 expensive shoes. The next move wasn't by me. It came from Caroline. She called, but I didn't answer. Then she emailed, subject line, "Cease before irreversible damage." I opened it, because amusement is a valid emotional need. The email was exactly what I expected. Threats without legal basis, wrapped in entitlement and perfume. My response took 5 lines. "Caroline, I don't fear consequences because I didn't lie, cheat, or misrepresent anything. If you'd like a public conversation instead of a private one, we can arrange that too. Warm regards, Mira." She didn't write back, yet. By early evening, it was time for a different kind of action. The dealership was hosting a pre-scheduled press tour, one Alden was supposed to lead. Even after everything, they hadn't officially pulled him from the roster, probably because Caroline had convinced them the scandal would cool down. I wanted to make sure it didn't. I didn't storm the building or create a scene. I just arrived 10 minutes before the press did, calmly, carrying a folder, and walked to the front desk with a smile. "Hi," I said to the receptionist. New girl, early 20s, eyes full of polite customer service hope. "I'm here to drop off documents for the legal office. Time sensitive." She didn't question me. Internal mail drop-offs rarely get interrogated, especially when the person doing the dropping off looks calm, prepared, and not interested in attention. So I walked right through, past the glass office walls, into the conference area, where Alden was standing in front of a mirror, adjusting his tie like the last 24 hours hadn't happened. The moment he saw me, the tie froze mid-knot. "You can't be here," he snapped. "Oh, I can," I said, placing the folder neatly on the table. "I'm just returning things that don't belong to me." He glanced at the folder with suspicion. "What's in that?" "Oh, just duplicates of documents the press might find interesting. I figured I'd save them the trouble of digging." "You look stressed, Alden. Need help?" He stepped forward. "Mira, I swear, if you open your mouth in front of them—" "I won't have to," I interrupted. "Your paperwork speaks for itself. I just supplied subtitles." The conference doors opened behind us. Journalists poured in, carrying notepads, cameras, and expressions of curiosity sharpened into knives. I walked right past them, offering a polite nod to the nearest reporter. "Good afternoon. Might want to check the folder inside before you start the Q&A, I said. Then I left. Right before the door shut, I heard someone ask, "Mr. Carter, can you comment on the allegations in this file?" Silence. Beautiful, poetic silence. By the time I got home, the neighborhood was lit up with evening porch lights and the faint smell of grilled dinners. My phone buzzed again, this time from Tara. "You're trending again." "For good or bad," I replied. "Depends who you ask." But I made popcorn. I smiled. The kind of smile that wasn't about victory, but relief. Relief that, for once, the narrative wasn't being overwritten by someone else's excuses. I stepped onto my porch, and for a moment the stillness felt earned. Then headlights appeared. A familiar car. Alden again. Only this time, he didn't storm out. He sat inside, staring at the house. No honking, no shouting, no rage speech rehearsed in his head. He looked smaller. I didn't let sympathy grow. Sympathy is a weed. It spreads if you don't yank it early. He finally stepped out and walked toward me. No tie, no blazer, just a wrinkled shirt and a man running out to versions of himself to defend. "Mira," he said, voice low, almost defeat-colored. "Please, you've made your point." "No," I said, "I've made mine. You still haven't made yours." He exhaled. "I messed up. I know I did. But you've taken everything. Is that enough?" "No," I said, "because I didn't take anything. I revealed what was already broken. There's a difference." He rubbed his face. "I don't know how to come back from this." "That's your problem," I said. "Coming back is always optional. Facing the truth isn't." He stood there, quiet for a moment, then said something I didn't expect. "I thought you'd always protect me." I didn't blink. I did, until I realized you were the thing I needed protecting from. That landed, finally. He took one step back, then another, like someone learning his balance didn't work anymore. He walked to his car, opened the door, paused, then looked back. "I hope someday you regret this." "I already regret that I trusted you," I said. "Everything after that has been correction." He got in and drove away. Not fast this time, just gone. Later that night, I sat at my desk, looking at the pieces of the past laid out like gemstones before setting. There was nothing left to expose. No more secrets to reveal. The truth had finished its circuit. There was only one final move left, one physical, measurable, satisfying move. And it was already in motion. Not destruction, not chaos. Just the final symbolic reset. Something permanent enough to close a chapter. Something loud enough to echo. The kind of ending you don't explain in words. Because the best revenge stories don't end with speeches. They end with proof. And tomorrow, he would find his proof, sitting in the driveway where his pride used to live. The night before the final act felt strangely calm, not triumphant, not anxious, just still, like the quiet stretch of road before a bridge you already decided to burn. I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the streetlights flicker across the trimmed lawns of Willow Bend. The neighborhood was pretending to sleep, but I could practically feel the blinds twitching. Gossip has a long shelf life here, and my story had become the pantry staple no one planned for, but everyone kept reaching for. The last step wasn't about exposure anymore. That part was done. The truth had already spread, mutated, become a cautionary tale shared between PTA meetings and backyard grills. What I needed now wasn't noise. It was closure. Not spoken, not written, not posted online. Something physical, something permanent, something Alden would never be able to talk his way out of. That was the purpose of the box in my garage. Inside it, glitter, paint thinner, duct tape, a pair of gloves, and a list of instructions I didn't need but wrote anyway. When you restore antiques, precision becomes muscle memory. And tonight, precision was the only rule that mattered. I waited until after midnight, when even the most dedicated curtain watchers were finally distracted by streaming shows or melatonin. Then I slipped into the gloves, picked up the box, and walked down the driveway to the curb where Alden's prized Mercedes sat, a flawless monument to his ego, parked across the street because I wouldn't let it touch my driveway anymore. He loved that car more than he ever loved a single promise he made. So it was fitting that it would become the closing statement. I didn't smash it. I didn't slash anything. That would have been dramatic, but amateur. No, the destruction needed to be artistic, something that wouldn't get me arrested, but would haunt him every time he looked at what was left. So I did what jeweler hands do best, layered. Paint thinner first, poured in slow, invisible strokes across the sleek panels. Then glitter, thick, metallic, blinding, under even the faintest light. The paint began dissolving under the chemical reaction, and the glitter fused into it, creating a swirling, warped mosaic that looked like a craft project gone feral. His once perfect luxury machine was now coated in permanent humiliation, loud, sparkling, irreversible. When I stepped back to admire the result, I almost laughed. It looked like the world's most expensive piñata. A sparkly, melting ego on wheels. I taped a note to the windshield. Some things can't be polished back. Then I walked back to the house, locked the door, and made tea again, because closure apparently pairs well with chamomile. Alden found the car at 7:32 a.m. I know the time because the moment his scream echoed down the street, 3 separate porch lights snapped on, 2 blinds lifted, and at least 1 phone camera started recording. The neighborhood may pretend to value privacy, but scandal is its favorite hobby sport. I watched from the upstairs window. His face wasn't angry at first. It was confusion, the kind a person has when reality stops matching the version they believed was still active. Then the anger arrived in waves. He paced around the car, staring at the glitter like it personally insulted him, then turned toward my house. He stormed up the driveway and pounded on the door. "Mira, open up!" I didn't move. He hit the door again, harder. "You did this!" I pressed the speaker button on the security intercom. "Correct," I said calmly, and it was my neatest work yet. "You've gone too far." "Oh, don't be dramatic," I said. "It still drives. It just reflects the truth now." "You're insane." "No," I said. "I'm free." He froze. That word landed harder than glitter ever could. He stood there breathing like someone realizing they'd finally lost. Not just a job, not just a reputation, but the illusion of control. "I hope you're proud of yourself," he said. "Oh, deeply," I replied. "But don't worry, this wasn't revenge. It was restoration. Restoration of what? Balance, I said. You ruined trust in silence. I ruined your car in daylight. Fair symmetry. He looked like he wanted to argue, but even he knew there was no headline in man who proposed to two women now angry about glitter car. The world wouldn't sympathize. He stepped back, face twisted between disbelief and humiliation. You've ruined my life. No, I said. You ruined your life. I just made sure the lights were on while it happened. He didn't answer. He just walked back toward the glittering disaster, stared at it again, then got in and drove off, slow, defeated, with metallic sparkles shedding behind him like shame confetti. The neighborhood watched. I closed the curtains. At noon, I received an email from the dealership board. Alden Carter is no longer affiliated with the company in any capacity. No apology, no acknowledgement, just an official stamp on a door already shut. At 2, Caroline sent a message that was mostly unpunctuated fury. I didn't reply. At 4, Tara sent a picture. Her yoga studio, now fully booked for the week. Caption: apparently, people love a graceful exit. At 6, I met with my lawyer and signed the final divorce papers. No screaming, no courtroom theatrics. Just clean ink and the steady knowledge that the story I walked into years ago was no longer the story I was leaving. When it was done, he looked up and said, "Most people cry at this part." "Most people were married to someone worth missing," I said. He nodded like he wanted to applaud that line, but wasn't sure if it was appropriate. That night, I didn't check social media or gossip threads or the community group where someone was definitely posting, "Does glitter count as vandalism?" I didn't need to. I sat outside, feet up, tea in hand, and let the quiet return. This time, it wasn't heavy. It was earned. The sprinklers turned on across the street. A distant dog barked. Somewhere, a neighbor probably whispered, "Well, she really did it." And I smiled, because I did. I didn't forgive him. I didn't save him. I didn't break myself to look graceful. I didn't walk away quietly. I walked through the fire and came out with every piece of myself accounted for and polished. Alden once told me everything can be replaced. He was wrong. Trust can't, self-respect can't, and neither can the moment someone finally realizes you weren't destroyed. You were sharpening. The story didn't need a moral. It didn't need a sequel. It ended exactly where it should have, with me closing the door and him driving away in a glitter-covered lesson he would never forget.